So is this the year that Disney finally makes a better movie than Pixar? Well, stick around and find out. Laser do 99. Hey everybody, and welcome to another LaserDude99 review. So I am reviewing Disney's Wreck-It Ralph. Now this movie, of course, if you've seen the trailer, it's been getting a little hyped. Gamers have been thinking, please don't let it mess up. Please don't let it mess up. Because, as we all know, there is no good or even subpar video game movies. It just has never happened for us. Never. Okay, so we're just holding our breath. So did Wreck-It Ralph deliver? Yeah, kind of. I'll get into that in a sec. So the story of Wreck-It Ralph is about this video game villain, Wreck-It Ralph, who is played by John C. Reilly. And he doesn't want to be the bad guy anymore because he's fed up. Because being a bad guy sucks. I mean, think about it. If you're in a video game, you get killed over and over and over and over again. And for what? Just because you can, why? And it suck, you know, it would suck. And so he wants to prove that he can be a hero or just do something worth outside of his game. So he leaves his game and goes game jumping. The only thing is, without him in that video game, his video game is at the risk of being unplugged, and that would destroy their game world forever. While he's trying to win a medal, the hero of his game, Fix-It Felix Jr., who is played by Jack Breckenmeyer, is trying to find them so he can save his own game. Along the way, he meets a sergeant in a first-person shooter played by Jane Lynch, and a character in a Mario Kart-like Candyland game called Vanellope, played by Sarah Silverman. Now, the thing is that, the very least, if you are a gamer, you're going to love this movie. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what type of gamer you are. You know, if you're old school gamer, you like the platformer, you like the 2D scrolling, you like the Atari games, then you're going to like this. Because there's so many references to those games. There's references to Pac-Man and to Tapper and to Street Fighter and all those old games that if you've played old school video games, you know about. And then if you are a fan of new first-person shooter, you know, new games of nowadays, they're in here too, and those games are played at just as well as there's three worlds that we interact with. We enter the world of Wreck-It Ralph, which is basically a Mario versus Donkey Kong type of video game. You know, he's going to you know, you got the hero Fix-It Felix that goes and fixes the building while Ralph is wrecking it, and if you fix the building, you throw Ralph off the building. You know, it's very Donkey Kong-esque. And it actually looks and feels like an old 2D platformer type game. Anywho, so that's the first world. The second world that there is the world of Hero's Duty, which is obviously a mix between Call of Duty and Halo. And, you know, in that world, you get to play against the whole alien first-person shooter stuff and how overblown it is, and how and you know, for a character like Ralph, whose world is a 2D classic scroller game, and then he goes into this 3D first-person shooter, it's so overwhelming for him, and it's a truly unique feel. Then you get the third world, which kind of unfortunately, but kind of not, we spend the most time in, which is Sugar Rush. And out of the three worlds that I saw from the trailer, the one that interested me the least was the Sugar Rush one, because it's just like, it doesn't look interesting. And unfortunately, it is the world we spend the most time in. However, the characters in that world are pretty interesting. It's the world itself isn't as interesting as the last two worlds we saw, but what they do with it in the end and how they handle it, it's okay. Now, I want to say at first that I liked the beginning of Wreck-It Ralph, but I felt it was getting a little slow at first. You know, like, there was tons of great gamer references. There are so many in the first 10, 20 minutes of this film. So many gamer references that you cannot see them all the first time. You'll be like, wait, I want to watch this part of the screen. Wait, something's happening over there. No, wait, what? Oh, shoot. And so, you know, I actually thought, okay, I'm going to count every gamer reference that I know. 5. Wait, what was that on? Or well, okay, something new, and you know, it's so many stuff, and you know why it's a lot of fun to look and pick that out. However, that's not throughout the whole movie, and it's probably for the best, because if it was like getting to the climax and the more emotional stuff, you'd be like, hey, look, wait, that doesn't fit. You know, it wouldn't be nice. However, even though I thought the movie was kind of slow going up, and I didn't fully like how the hero's duty part was handled at first, but then I realized it was part of his character. I thought he was being like, dude, he's being really selfish. I'm not really getting into this character, but I realized it is part of his character arc. I want to say that the best part about this movie is the character interactions with each other, because these characters don't belong together in this type of film, you know, especially one of my favorite characters, and I thought I was going to be so annoyed with the character, was Fix-It Felix Jr., played by Jack Breckenmeyer. I thought I was going to be annoyed with his character, but it's just like, he's a character from his gaming age. And because of that, he comes across as a good old wholesome guy that just wants to go and do the right thing. And his comedic timing is perfect, and it really feels like he's a character from that day and age in video games. That, you know, he's from that day and age, and he's not from the modern video game era. And his interactions, I thought, were all very funny. I found myself laughing at every one of his lines, almost. Because I just thought that he was a fun character. Also, the interactions between Ralph and this girl, Vanellope, also well handled. Now, here's the thing. In this game, she's a glitch. And therefore, you know, there's a whole thing that they go about that. I don't want to give any spoilers away. But the whole way they handle how she's a glitch and how it parallels her and Ralph and the stuff in it, it's really well handled. The relationship is built up strong with good humor and good laughs. And in the end, you know, you do get some really emotional and almost like heartbreaking moments where you're like, oh, God, no! Come on, man. You know, and it's fun. And you know what? There's no point where I thought, you know, usually when you have a character that's doing something that's like a really jerk move or whatever, you think, okay, that was a total jerk move. The character had no reason to do that move. But in here, the character has a very good reason to do that move. And it makes sense when he changes his mind later on. I don't want to give away what exactly happens because it was pretty intense. I will admit, though, that even though they're in a world where it's all candy, I did get a little annoyed of the constant, like, I'm not even sure if you could call it product placement. It was just like, I don't know, product tie-ins. I mean, like, there's a point where two characters are trapped in sinking Nestle Quick. And the only way they can get out is through Laffy Taffy, that they have to make the Laffy Taffy laugh and it will get closer to them and then they can get out. Now the thing is, that scene is actually really funny. I laughed out loud a lot in that scene. The only thing is, I just got a little annoyed by the constant, because that's not the only time that there's constant like product placements in there. And like how I enjoy that these product placements are integrated into the story, I wasn't too happy that there was so many. Once again, it probably was more, it wasn't more of product placement, it probably was more just talking about how, you know, video games nowadays has product placement in it, and this one world is overblown with it. But, you know, yeah. Now, as I said, the interactions with him and the little girl are funny, and her character is pretty funny. You know, I enjoy her. There's no character in here that I don't at least enjoy. This sergeant played by Jane Lynch, I think she was a lot of fun too. Mostly because I love this scene because it's so true. There's a point where, you know, Fix-It Felix says to one of the soldiers, "Boy, is she always this uptight?" or something like that. And he says, "It's not her fault. She was programmed with the most tragic backstory ever." And I'm just like, that's hilarious. That is hilarious because these video game characters don't actually have a history. They're, you know, data and code, whatever we program into them and give them life, you know. So to give them, and we do this in video games and in other stuff sometimes. We put a tragic backstory for a character for no particular reason other than just thinking that giving them a tragic backstory makes them more relatable. And I'm not going to give away any more of how they handle that, but I think it's pretty funny the way they handle it. I will say that the movie is kind of, but not fully predictable. I mean, I could kind of see where the road's going, but it's like driving in fog. You know where the road is going, but you're not exactly sure how you're going to get to that point. And you know what? It's like I could see a couple stuff coming, but for the most part, it kept me guessing and actually surprised me a couple of times on how they handled things. Which, you know, it's hard for a movie to do nowadays. I will say that I fully enjoyed Wreck-It Ralph. There are some times where I think it kind of slowed down and the humor didn't hit every time. One thing that I'm glad that they addressed in the story is that a gamer character can die if he's not in his own video game. That's what they say. If you're in your own video game, you're dead. Okay, whatever, I'm alive again. But if you're in somebody else's video game, you can die. It makes sense. You know, you might say, well, how does that work in this world? I don't get how that works. But the thing is, it makes sense for the story because if there was no way these characters could die, there would be no tension, no, you know, nothing that would make us actually worried about them. There is one thing, though, that I don't think really makes sense. It's the gamer world is destroyed if somebody unplugs the game system. I don't think so. That doesn't sit well for me. If you could say that they were going to be taken apart and disassembled and then put back together, then you can say, sure, that destroys the world. Okay, that makes sense. But the thing is, if you say that if they are unplugged, that means that they're done. I mean, you have to unplug video games at some point for some reasons, but rather sometimes it's just, you know what, this video game, if you're an arcade, that is, this video game system would work better if it was moved over there and we could fit this one here then, because that won't fit over there. Whatever, you unplug it and you move it. It's like, okay, just an unplug. What happens when the power goes out? Are you all dead? Are you all killed instantly? How does that work? And if you're unplugged and you all leave to the Game Central station and then the game's plugged back in, does that mean more of you pop up or is the game still empty? I don't know, it's a little bit of a plot hole, something that drew my attention, but nothing that was, I guess, too bad. It was just something I think they could have maybe elaborated a little bit more on, but in the long run it might have bogged down the story a little bit more, or made it more complicated, which wasn't exactly necessary. So I think that Wreck-It Ralph is a fun, and yes, I do think it's better than Brave. I do. Because I enjoyed myself fully in Wreck-It Ralph. It surprised me at times, and the story was inventive. Where Brave, I felt like I've seen 100 times. You could say that Wreck-It Ralph is similar to Toy Story, but the roles aren't the same. Toy Story was a buddy movie about two people who didn't exactly like each other, ended up becoming best friends in the end. Wreck-It Ralph is about a movie about a guy who meets a little girl who don't exactly like each... No, wait. No, that's actually not what the story's about. It's about a guy who thinks he's a villain and tries to become a hero. That's the whole thing. But it's a very funny and inventive family film that can also relate to the gamer audience. And so, I think that it's a pretty fun movie. It's definitely a movie. If you're wanting to check out an animated movie, check that out. It's the only good movie I think in theaters right now. But, you know, we're going to have some good ones coming up with James Bond and whatever. At least I hope they're good. But in any case, I'm giving Wreck-It Ralph a 7.5 out of 10. It's a good, fun movie. If you're a gamer, you'll really enjoy it. Old school and new school. And hey, it's definitely a great film to take your kids to. I think, even though I haven't seen a lot of this year's animated movies, but it's the best one I've seen this year. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm LaserDude99, and if I don't like it, it's not worth it. See you around.